So thank you, Rachel, and thank you everybody that's here, Rabbi Lerner and the whole community, and for setting this amazing event. And it's become an important thing in my life. It's become and pushed and motivated by Rachel's view of what this should be, and I think it's really powerful. And not just a remembrance, but hopefully tonight, even more so, a way of uh, talking about people that have been lost in a terrible way, and from that, bringing them to life, and from that, adding some meaning to what happened. Hard to do that, but there is, I hope I'll be able to show some meaning, I think, that has come from all this. So to start, at the beginning is, this is a famous to me, and actually well-published photograph of my sister, Dina, AKA Debbie. So to distinguish her in America versus Israel, in America she's Debbie, and in Israel she's Dina. And I do that because it gets confusing all the time. And Eli, her husband, this was actually 2 weeks before they were killed at their son Svi's wedding. I'm not sure I'm going to make it through this. So we grew up in
yeah.
What?
Do what you feel comfortable with.
So we grew up in a middle class kind of environment, and these are some early photographs of my mother, Debbie, probably what, at 4 or 5, a little bit younger. Our whole family. We lived in the Washington area, Northeast DC, and then we ultimately moved to Silver Spring, Maryland, in a Jewishy kind of suburb. It ultimately became very Jewish suburb of Silver Spring, and had a normal kind of growth. We all went to the Hebrew Day School, Hebrew Academy of Washington, and don't exactly know why, but I wasn't so involved. My brother not so involved, but Debbie became very involved, and part of the reason for that was her close. I don't know if this arrow shows up. Her close connection to Rabbi Horovitz, who was the principal of the Hebrew Academy of Washington at that time. Unfortunately, not when I was there. Maybe I would have been more inspired. And his family. And she became a very close friend with Tovi, shown here. This is 1972. Why isn't it going? Okay, 1972. So she'd gone through the Hebrew Academy of Washington. She graduated from the Hebrew Academy of Washington. By then we were living in Silver Spring. She went to secular high school, Northwood High School in Silver Spring, and continued with the Hebrew high school that was taught from the Hebrew Academy of Washington, which itself moved to Silver Spring. And she was never happy. She was always I said that wrong. She was always happy. So she was always very inquisitive and deep thinking, unusual girl. Everybody said that. And Rabbi Horovitz became totally enamored with her and her intellect and her desire for some more meaning in life than you could find in Silver Spring, Maryland at that time. And so just after this photograph, at this time, she and Tovi convinced their parents to let them do a gap year in Israel. And so they went to the Machala in Bayit Vagan. I don't know if you know of it. It's a high school for advanced American Jews, girls. And she actually wasn't qualified, but Rabbi Horovitz convinced them that they should take her in. and she worked like all the time and was totally enthralled with life in Israel. I think I put these slides out of order, but this is her at that time, like 1972, and just exploring and loving everything she saw. And it quickly became clear that she probably wasn't coming back to the US. So the other half of this story is with Ellie. So these are early pictures of Ellie. That one, not that one. And that one, not that. His mother, Leah, and Rabbi Moshe Horovitz here. In Miami, Florida, where he was the principal of a Hebrew day school in Florida. Here's the whole family. But Ellie was not, was a rebel, and he diverged from his family. In fact, they had a lot of trouble with him, and was involved in some medications that you probably wouldn't want to have your children involved in. But his father convinced him to go to Israel and stay with his uncle. So here he is. He was actually only going to do it temporarily. He was on his way to India to become a Buddhist, so he said. But living in Israel at that point, 1972 as well, he became really enthralled in Israel. He became enthralled with Judaism, and here he is. He joined the IDF, and then after the IDF, he began working in a yeshiva, or learning in a yeshiva. And at approximately that time, my sister and he met, with a little help from Tovi, who encouraged their connection. So here they are again, 1972, just before they got married, I think. And that led to this. So Dina wanted very much for him to become a religious a rabbi, and she wanted to pursue her career, her life, in a meaningful way with the people within Israel and learning about Jewishness and helping promote the culture. Their life together, to me, from the outside, was absolutely beautiful. They're always together. You see, they're holding hands. They're smiling, laughing. One of the students that described it always talked about them as being in a little bubble. They were always looking at each other and just talking away. It was chronic, constant. And though with regard for the world around them, not just themselves, but they were trying to build a real Jewish life in Jerusalem and in nearby, pursuing a goal of communicating and educating and going deeper into Judaism. So they got married. They had kids. They have 4 children, and just a few pictures of the family. Got myself in the picture here. She came back to the U.S. to visit one time. I can't overstate how warm and comfortable and loving that family was. And they ended up moving to, after living in several places in Jerusalem, they ended up moving to Kiryat Arba, where Debbie, Dina, I should be calling her at this point, was teaching in the high school in Kiryat Arba, in the high school for girls. She did that for about 10 years and taught English as well, music as well. And then she moved, continued teaching there, but moved to a college in Jerusalem, Midreshet Harovah. I don't know if anybody knows of it. And she taught there for several years and was at the same time still teaching music and working as a consultant and an advisor. So I didn't put in here, I'm just showing you the pictures of them studying and working constantly. I didn't put in all the documents that have accumulated over the years of just the amazing joy that students had in being connected with them. And calling them constantly. People were always at the house. Eli was always having his students over for after Shabbat, during Shabbat for lessons. And Dina was always on the phone. It was a joke. She was never off the phone because she was always talking to her students and friends, graduates who looked to her for advice and looked to her to bring her joy into their lives and help them move ahead. So I can't show the immense joy that she had, but I thought it would be really nice to hear her speak. And this is a lesson she gave in Hebrew, and Rachel is going to do a translation, not a translation of it, but a comment, some thoughts about it. And I just encourage you to listen to her voice. It's just so indicative of who she was and what joy she had in studying and learning and helping.
שלום לכולם, זה מביך. עכשיו עברתי את זה, אני אתחיל את השיעור. אני הבנתי שיש כאן יום עיון שהמטרה שלו זה קצת בסוף ימי הקיץ, אחרי המנוחה הגדולה וההצטלבטות, וכדי שהוא סידר לנו חגים כאלה שלא הדרגה, זאת אומרת גומרים הקיץ ולא שצריך לאסוף את כל הפיזור הנפש ולהיכנס לאיזשהו תלם, אבל כבר על ההתחלה יש לנו את הימים הנוראים. אז אני מבינה שמטרת יום עיון זה משהו של התעוררות, משהו שאדם יוצא מתוך שגרה, מתוך הקליפה שאוסף אותו, ומנסה לצאת לקראת הימים הנוראים הבאים עלינו.
So I have to say, Stan, that I actually listened to this entire lecture, that the topic is Horovitz, that she worked with some of her students in the college level, and trying to, and she was talking about when you're numb inside, you know, what do you need to wake you up and bring you back to life? And it just, for those of you that speak Hebrew, I highly recommend it, or maybe another time we can listen and I can translate. But it was definitely, I really appreciated listening to her this week. Stan, if you want to share and finish your slideshow.
Okay. Okay. It's not moving. I don't want to see that just yet. Eli also had many students and was an inspiration for many of the people around him, and was renowned for the classes that he taught. And that all ended one day, Erev Shabbat, 2003, just before Purim. I remember this image extremely well. This is what I came to when I got to Israel. We literally got there and walked into that scene. A little more peaceful. They're buried just outside of Jerusalem as you approach on Highway 1, is just before you get into the city, right after the big sign, just before the big sign that says Bruchim Habayim. But what a disaster. What a horrible disaster that still affects me and everybody connected to them. But what's the meaning? Is there any meaning in that? What are the consequences? I think all the joy they brought to all the people that they worked with, all the students that they had, all their family. She was the center of our family in every which way. All that, and then the consequences of their death make you focus on bringing meaning and bringing life to the people around you. And it's a constant inspiration. It's an inspiration for me. It's an inspiration for all of their progeny who are shown here in this picture. It's still going on. I think that's where I get some solace. You can't get solace from it, but that's where you get some hope about the future, that people learn from all this and see what they brought to it, what their joy was in connecting and bringing meaning to life and searching for meaning and searching for new beginnings for themselves. They both were headed in a totally different direction, and then came to focus on coming to Israel and seeking that kind of a life. So that's what I hope one can take from this. And I just want to encourage people, if you want to learn more, my nephew Tzvi, their oldest son, their only son, has done an amazing job putting together this website. So if you go to leescore.net, you can find Ellie's books, you can find Ellie's lessons recorded, you can find Dina's lessons recorded, Dina's few books, the writings of her children. It's an amazing website, and constantly being updated. You can read commentary of students and their amazing connections to the two of them and what it meant to their life. So I thank you again for being able to do this, and to being able to share a little bit about their lives and the joy they brought to so many people.
Thank you, Stan. I wish that we were in person so I can give you a hug and we can